And welcome everyone. The Homeschool Connect Expo 2021 online college fair. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching at, you can get the links down below to the Homeschool Connect Expo, to the online college fair, to Bryan College, which we're going to be speaking about right now. But all the month of February, we're going to be highlighting colleges and universities that open and welcome homeschoolers with open arms. So right now we have Bryan College and bring Pat on, and she's going to tell us a bit more.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Pat. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's a little rainy and dreary here, but I'm indoors, so that's good.
Yeah. The same here.
Yeah.
We're based in Atlanta, and you're there in
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee, so not too far away from us.
Yeah.
But why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Bryan College?
All righty. So I homeschooled my 9 children for more than 32 years. I'm finally finished. Now I'm the homeschool specialist at Bryan College. My oldest came to Bryan in 1998. We lived in Florida at the time, and I never lived outside of Florida. So I said, hey, why don't we move up there? She can stay home. We'll use the money that we save with room and board for the move. And we did that, and we love it up here. So about 6 years ago, I began working for Bryan. They wanted to have somebody in the admissions department who could connect with homeschoolers because we are a very homeschool friendly college. Our new president, Dr. Mann, was a homeschool dad. I think all of our vice presidents were homeschool dad. Many of our faculty and staff homeschool their children. 2 of our PhDs were homeschooled themselves. So we have a lot of homeschoolers on campus. We have a homeschool scholarship. So they created my position so I could network with homeschoolers, help them prepare their children for college, learn from my mistakes. And that's what I do. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, that's great. I know, if anybody's watching this, Pat actually has a speaker session inside of Homeschool Connect Expo about getting prepared for college. And I think that's one of the things for homeschoolers that people, it flies by so quick. I had 3 kids, and before you knew it, we were getting into this next step of higher education. And it can be scary at times because a lot of times it does sneak up on you. And it's almost overwhelming. So I appreciate you doing that and having that out there and doing what you do. But and Bryan College, you're right there in Tennessee, gorgeous area.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryan College, I know you have a kind of a presentation. We had technical difficulties, but we're going to have you back on later on in February to talk about it even more about Bryan. But go ahead and share more about Bryan College.
Thank you. Yeah, I met yesterday with 5 moms who needed some help. Homeschoolers don't have a brick and mortar counselor to go to. So it's kind of hard with your first one, at least, to know who to ask and even what to ask. And I made mistakes with more than a few of my first ones. So I'll talk about that too. We are nestled in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. We're on the river. We have a fishing team. Our team has won nationals twice. The first time they announced that, I kind of chuckled because I didn't realize there was collegiate fishing teams. And I got in the elevator with the fishing coach and said, so how many fishing teams are there? I'm expecting there to be 30 or 40. There's over 300 collegiate fishing teams. So I was kind of blown away by that. And speaking of fishing, that is a scholarship sport here. And our athletic scholarships stack with our academic scholarships. That doesn't happen at every college. So that is a bonus here. We have a small campus. So we have around 700 students on campus. It's like an extended family, a big community. So the professors will eat with the students in the cafeteria and have them in their homes, and lots of opportunities. Even as small as we are, we have a school of engineering. We're starting a nursing program. We have a wide variety of music degrees. We have music scholarships, theater scholarships. We even have a martial arts academy. That has nothing to do with the major you choose, and you can come in and be scholarshiped on that with no experience, or all the way up to having a black belt and get another one. It's a leadership program. It's an amazing program. So we are a non-denominational Christian college. Our motto is Christ above all. The heart of the faculty and staff is to help these students be prepared for life after college, to make a difference in the world. In fact, not even after college, right now. Pre-COVID, our students could go on mission trips and internships and have a real impact all around the world. Now we even still have opportunities. We tutor kids in the community. The head of our financial aid department, David Haggard, is a homeschool dad, and he and his wife started Blazing Hope Ranch, which is a ministry to help women come out of trafficking and recover using horses. So it's an equine rescue ministry, and students can participate in that. And that's really great. This year, because of COVID, so many terrible things have happened, but a couple of good things have happened. We have become test optional. So right now, Bryan will accept your students using their GPA, and we will award scholarships using their GPA. Now, test optional doesn't mean test blind. If your student has a test score that will get them in a higher scholarship amount than their GPA, we'll award them the highest scholarship, whether it's test score or GPA. But when the ACT and SAT were canceled, so many students didn't even have the opportunity to take those tests and get those scores. We decided to become test optional. Now, while I'm talking about test, in case you did not know, there is a third test called the CLT, stands for Classic Learning Test. It's not for parents who have trained their children classically. It's just a classic test, although classical students do well with it. It's different than the ACT and SAT in a couple of ways, and we accept the scores, and we'll use that too for admission and for scholarship purposes. It's online, so no more bubbles. Students are using the computer. You can sign up a week ahead with no penalty, which is great. With the ACT, you have to sign up 2 months out with no late fee and 1 month out with a late fee. Students, when it was offered on campus, and we used to proctor it here, they would get their score before they went to bed. They don't get their score that quickly now because they're offering it virtually. So they could continue offering the test when ACT and SAT couldn't. But to make sure the students aren't cheating, they have to go through a process which takes a little more time. So they don't get their scores immediately, but they get them pretty quickly. There's no science portion on the CLT. The math portion does not allow calculators, but they give them the formulas. The reading assignments are going to come from great books like C.S. Lewis and great classics. So it's really a good test. Now, the downside to testing in Tennessee, if you have a Tennessee student who is homeschooled, as of now, to get the HOPE, they have to have an ACT or an SAT score. We are hoping that legislation will pass that where the state will accept the GPA of a homeschool student if they dual enroll at least 6 hours. And that will give a little more fair playing ground to the homeschool students. But for right now, if your student is in Tennessee and comes to Bryan and they want the HOPE, then they have to have an ACT or SAT score. We're hoping also they will accept the CLT, and the Department of Education said they will, but that too has to go through legislation, and those wheels turn slowly. So that is an option you should have your students look at. If you're watching this and you have a 10th grader or a 9th grader, there's a CLT 10 that's free for your student to take 3 times a year. And the CLT 10, when they're 10th graders, comes with scholarship potential. They take that at home and you proctor it. The parent proctors it. So that's a really good option. There's also a CLT 8 for 7th and 8th graders. So one of the mistakes I made with my children that I regret is I did not prepare them to take tests. I homeschooled co-op style. We use unit studies. My children had to do their work till I was satisfied with the work they did. And because we used unit studies, we didn't even divide up except for math. They didn't even realize they were taking the subjects they were taking because they were all incorporated into the unit study. And because I didn't believe, and I still don't believe, that these college exams are good indicators of how well a student will do in college, I did not make them take tests. 3 of my 9 children were straight A college students, and none of them were very good test takers. They scored in the low 20s in the ACT, but they were very smart kids. And with my older kids, I said, don't worry about the test. Your portfolios are amazing. These colleges are going to want you. And I was right. The colleges did want them, but they didn't want to award them any merit scholarship without those exam scores. So I had to kind of bite the bullet and realize, okay, I don't like it, but it's a hoop we have to jump through. Now that we're test optional, you don't have to, but we don't know if we're going to remain test optional or not. However, you do want your students to know how to take tests, because so much of getting a good score is on their test taking abilities, not necessarily on what they've learned or what they know. Even with the 3 college exams, the ACT is the only one that has a science portion, and it has nothing to do with the science they've learned. It has everything to do with analyzing the data they give you. And when kids look at that, if they don't understand it, sometimes they freak out and they go, I never studied this in science. And they don't realize the questions have more to do with the data, analyzing the data, not what they've learned. So for students that have difficulty with that section of the ACT, they may want to take the SAT or the CLT. I had my children take both. We didn't have the CLT at the time. I had them take both the ACT and the SAT because some liked one better than the other. My daughter liked the SAT, number 1, because it didn't have the science portion, and number 2, because the time limits were shorter, and she felt like she could manage her time better with shorter increments. So you want your students to test well, and if you begin introducing them to these tests at a young age, 7th and 8th grade with the CLT 8 and 9th and 10th grade with the CLT 10, then research shows that students do get better scores the more tests they take. And that's mostly because they're more familiar with the test. Their anxiety level goes down, and they know what's to be expected. That's not always the case, but most of the time it is. In fact, the research that shows wealthy students make good scores is not because wealthy students are necessarily brighter or smarter. It's because the parents will spend more money on the test prep and the number of times they take the test and the tutors for the test. And in the case of recent news, we know some of them just paid off the people who ran the test, or they paid people to take the test for them. So I'm not suggesting that at all, but we do want our students to be prepared to take these tests and to have good test taking abilities. So that's something that's very important. Another question that is big on the minds of homeschoolers is dual enrollment. So Sam, should we talk about dual enrollment for a little while?
Yeah, I think that's a really good to talk about.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what our what we offer here. I'm going to take a sip. Hold on.
All right.
So students who have finished 10th grade with a 3.0 GPA can take dual enrollment classes with Bryan College. So we don't require a test score unless they want to take a higher level math class. And then we require 22 on the ACT portion of the math. But if your student wants to take any other class with us, they just have to have completed the 10th grade and have a 3.0 GPA. We have dual enrollment online 4 times a year. So we have regular fall classes and spring classes, and then we have 2 5-week summer sessions. That's a short semester, so we only allow students to take 1 class at a time when they're dual enrolling during the summer session. We give an out-of-state scholarship. So a 3-hour class with Bryan is $500, which already is a great price. But if you live out of state and you apply the $200 scholarship, it's only $300. We are regionally accredited with SACS. That's the same accreditation big universities have, like Auburn and FSU. So more than likely, our credits will transfer to any other school. So that's really good to know. I did learn when I became involved with admissions, the 2 words I have to use often is it depends. Well, your credits transfer, it depends. It depends on your major. It depends on the school you're going to. It depends on where you took the classes. So those are things that you want to understand and be informed about. I tell parents it's really good if you have your students' top 2 or 3 college choices picked out by the time they're 10th or 11th grade, because then you can find out what those colleges expect, what they expect on your transcript, what they expect for admissions. Will they transfer the credits your students taken? Are they going to be penalized? Will they lose their freshman scholarships if they take too many classes? Can they bring in CLEP credit and AP credit? Students can earn college credit through AP and CLEP by paying to take an exam. If they get 3 or higher, they pass the exam. Some colleges are more rigorous. They want them to get a 4 or a 5. I may be speaking a different language to some of you, but I can send you a lot more information about this if you would like. But dual enrollment is when a high school student takes a college class and receives credit on their high school transcript and college credit at the same time. It makes sense if your student is ready, able, qualified, and can pass those classes to take dual enrollment classes, especially if your student wants to be a music major or pre-professional, like become a doctor or attorney or engineer, because those tracks require more hours than a liberal arts major. So these are things you need to think about and look into. But dual enrollment's very affordable. If your student lives in Tennessee, there's a grant that they can use for the first 2.5 classes once they finish 10th grade. After that, we'll give Tennessee students the same $200 scholarship. In fact, a student in Tennessee can take 30 hours with us for $600, and I can share with you how that takes place. Also, we will allow students who've completed 9th grade to take classes with us, but the requirement's a little more rigorous. They have to have a 3.5 GPA, and in this case, they do have to have a test score. So it has to be a 24 ACT or 1160 SAT, or I believe 76 CLT. I can shoot you that information for sure. And they're only allowed to take one class at a time. For the students who've completed 10th grade, they can actually take 3 classes with us in the fall and 3 in the spring and 1 each summer. So a student could technically take 10 semesters worth of classes with us before they graduate. And another cool thing is 1 semester of English on the college level is equal to a full credit on your high school transcript. So every dual enrollment class your student takes actually gives them a year's worth of credit on their high school transcript. Which classes should you take? That's a good question. One of the best classes to take at Bryan is English 109, because it's a writing class, because students are going to have to write and write and write some more in college. So the sooner they learn how to write well, the better that's going to be. I suggest math classes often for 3 reasons. 1, if your students hate math and they don't want to take it in college, they can get it out of the way. Second reason, if they're taking a math class while they're taking the college exams, they're going to score better because it's going to be fresh on their mind, because we all know how quickly we forget what we've learned in math if we're not using it. And the third reason is, if you have a student who's pursuing a STEM degree, anything engineering, anything with accounting, economics, is going to require more math. Then the sooner they get that, or the sooner they can take those classes, the more they can get out of the way, the better that will be. Same thing with science classes if they're pursuing engineering. What I would tell you to be careful about is having your student take a class that pertains to their major, if they know what they want to major in, unless they're taking it at the college they're going to attend. For instance, if your student wanted to major in biology and they took biology at a community college, and then they came to Bryan College after high school, we might accept the credit, but we may count it as an elective and say, we want you to take biology from us. All of our classes are taught from a biblical worldview because we're a Christian college. So that's something else you want to be aware of. On the other hand, having your child take a class that has to do with their intended major might be a good way to confirm their interest or show them that's not really what they wanted. My youngest son, his first dual enrollment class was during the short summer session, and he wanted to take philosophy. And I said, "You're sure you want to take that in the short session?" He's like, "Yes, I love it." He took the class, he made an A, he loved it. It confirmed that's what he wanted his major to be. So those are just a few things to think about. Another good class to take, especially if you require foreign language in high school, is a foreign language class, because then that counts during high school and gives them the college credit. Although, another thing to be aware of, our engineering majors do not take foreign language in college. And we recently had a dual enrollment student visit who's going to come to Bryan and is going to be in our engineering school. And he currently was dual enrolled in a foreign language class. And he said, "Oh man, if I had known that wasn't on the track, I would have taken another science class or a math class or something that would have counted toward my major." So on our website, probably any college's website, you can actually pull up the 4-year tracks for the major that you're interested in, and you can see which classes are suggested to make sure that your students don't spend more time and money taking classes that aren't going to be counted or that will only be counted as electives. Same thing with AP and CLEP. Get your top college choices lined up so you know if they accept those credits and how many they accept and which subjects they will accept, because we have more than a few homeschool students on our campus who came in with more CLEP than was transferred. So you don't want to spend money and time unnecessarily if you don't have to. So that's another reason to be prepared. Also, one more thing, and this is kind of sort of have to do with dual enrollment. We have a summer institute in July, It's really a 1-week camp. It's for high school students, 9th grade to 12th. There's an early bird price out there now, and there's 4 tracks from which to choose. And this also helps students find out if they really want to pursue a major. This year, the 4 tracks are creative writing, apologetics, math, and the head of our engineering department's teaching that. So there'll be some fun hands-on engineering type things to do, and performing arts. So students come and stay on campus, room and boards included. They probably will be in their own room if COVID precautions are still in place. And they get an hour of college credit, I think. But then they become better prepared for college, and they become familiar with the campus. I would recommend, if your students are interested in colleges that have summer camps, to attend their camps. We also offer an extra $250 scholarship to seniors who come to our Summer Institute, because we're finding that they're better prepared. They come in as freshmen with less anxiety. They're already familiar with the campus, the faculty, the staff, and oftentimes find their roommate. If you come to Bryan and you're going to stay in the dorms and you don't know anybody, we give you a questionnaire. Those don't always work as well as they should, because my youngest daughter, who's quite the introvert, ended up being put in a room with a cheerleader who was quite the extrovert. And at Christmas time during the break, they switched roommates. So that's just a little plug for camps that colleges offer, and dual enrollment classes. Is all that clear, Sam? Did you conjure up any questions?
I absolutely love what you're talking about, because with the dual enrollment, that is a great way of getting the high schoolers and homeschoolers inside high school, the extra credit. And like what you said, it's great for their track, and everything. So I absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm.
The only question we had was, where in Tennessee is Dayton, right? Dayton,
Right.
Tennessee.
Right, Dayton, Tennessee, not Dayton, Ohio. Small little town. We're about 40 miles north of Chattanooga. Dayton is where the Scopes trial took place. In 1925, there was a trial here because Tennessee had outlawed evolution. And people think, if they watch the movie and hear it, The Wind, that parents were irate and the police stormed in a classroom and arrested a science teacher. And that's not at all what happened. In fact, I have a YouTube video presentation on what really happened at the Scopes trial, because the ACLU put an ad in the paper and said, if anybody in Tennessee is willing to admit they taught evolution, we want to make a test case out of this. And the founding fathers said, let's do it. It will put us on the map. They didn't realize quite how it would put them on the map, but they did it. And when it was announced there was going to be a trial, this 1925, somebody contacted William Jennings Bryan, who we're named after, Bryan College. He had run for president 3 times. He was the top speaker on the Chicago speaker circuit for 25 years. And he was fearful about evolution being taught in public schools. And somebody contacted him and said, hey, why don't you come be on the prosecuting team? And he actually volunteered to come do that. The attorney here, this may ring a bell with you, his name was Sue. He was a boy named Sue. He's actually the inspiration for Johnny Cash's song. Except the words in that song have nothing to do to describe this man, because he wasn't like that at all. So he volunteered to be on the prosecuting team, and then somebody contacted Clarence Darrow, who was an agnostic or atheist and kind of the nemesis of Bryan, and said, hey, here's your chance to beat Bryan in court. And he volunteered to be on the defending team. And it was the first trial that was covered by radio. There was a lot of firsts in this trial. It was a very important trial. And it ended up, well, actually, Clarence Darrow called William Jennings Bryan to the witness stand at one point in the trial, and the judge goes, you can't call the attorney on the opposites. And Bryan goes, no, I'll do it. I'll go up there and let him question me if he'll let me question him. And Darrow says, okay. So Bryan got on the stand, and Darrow asked all these pointed questions to try and make him look like a religious buffoon. Where did Cain get his wife? Did the world really stand still with Joshua? Did Jonah get swallowed by the whale? To which he answered, the Bible says a big fish, not a whale. William Jennings Bryan didn't know how old the earth was. If you watch and hear at The Wind, he says the earth began on October something, and he names a year. Well, he didn't believe that at all. He didn't know how old it was. And he wasn't going to say that it was a certain number of years old. But he he let Darrow question him. And meanwhile, he's ready to question Darrow, and he's writing up his closing arguments because he's an amazing speaker. Darrow wants the trial to end. He wants it to end because, number one, he doesn't want to be questioned by Bryan. Number two, he doesn't want Bryan to be able to give his closing statement. And number three, he wanted this trial to end with a guilty verdict so he could go to an appeals court. He wanted it to go higher and higher. So the next day he said to the judge, we're ready to call the jury and get a verdict. We're ready. So the jury came in, they declared him guilty. He was fined by the judge $100. Darrow promised to pay it. Bryan said he'd pay it. The town father said they'd pay it because they talked the guy into doing it. They told him he wouldn't even lose his job. He never went to jail. The judge fined him $100. Well, later, come to find out, when Darrow tried to appeal it, they threw it out of court on a technicality because the jury was the one who was supposed to impose the fine, not the judge. He's dead now, but many people wonder if he didn't know what he was doing, and that stopped it from going to the appellate court. So while Bryan was here, he looked up at these hills and he said, this would be a really good place to build an institution to teach students to defend the faith. 5 years after his death, some men came to his wife and said, we want to build a college in his name. Should we build it in Chicago where he grew up, or in Washington where he served, or in Dayton where the trial took place? And she said, Dayton, definitely Dayton. So we're a small little town, beautiful campus, great places to hike around here. If you want to go to a movie, you have to go to Cleveland or Chattanooga. We don't even have a theater. We do have a Walmart, and we have some great fishing tournaments.
Yeah, if you go on to Google Maps, you can. I drove through your campus and drove around, and you can see the hills and the water right there. And it is an absolutely gorgeous campus. Very pretty, very. Just like you say, almost like a family type of setting, and you have everything, and it's gorgeous. And I love that area anyway in Tennessee. So you're right there in the middle of it. But that was really interesting about the Scopes trial. I didn't know that was there.
No, and we still have the courthouse that you can go watch court in session, although it's fixing to move to a new building, then that will be a museum. But in the basement, there is a free museum, and every July, which is the anniversary, they have a musical reproduction of the Scopes trial, and you get to sit in the seats where it took place. So that's pretty amazing.
That is really cool. That is the one other question we had was, I think you've answered it. You have the summer camps, and then are you open for visitations?
Yes, we absolutely are. In fact, if your student's interested in performing arts, we're having a performing arts open house February 26th. If you have a senior, we're also having a scholarship event that weekend and the next. So we have each semester, we have a scholarship event for seniors who've been accepted and who have at least a 3.0 GPA. They come to this free event, they have an interview with faculty, and they get another $1,000 to $3,000 renewable each year based on that interview. And it has nothing to do with academics or their score or their GPA. It has more to do with their leadership skills, what they want to do after college, their ambition, things like that. So I love that because it's just based on the heart of the student, really. So that's coming up too. If you have a student, we can actually expedite the application process. We have waived the fee, so it won't even cost you to apply these days, so you can apply. I did want to say, while I'm thinking about it, with dual enrollment, some of my blog articles and podcasts have articles on the dangers of dual enrollment. And one of the dangers you need to be very careful of is putting your child in a class when they're not going to pass it, because that stays with their permanent record. So we had one student here a year ago. He was using the Tennessee grant. He actually failed the class. The mom didn't know till it was too late. He lost the grant. She made him retake the class to get a better grade because she didn't want to F on his permanent record, which is understandable, and she made him pay out of pocket. So you want to be sure your student is ready for these college classes. For homeschoolers, it is a great way to prepare them for college because they're answering to someone other than mom. So they don't have to be on the computer a particular time of the day, but they do have to do their assignments on time. They have to work with other members of the class. They have to take their tests when they're supposed to. So it's really good in helping them hone their time management and scheduling skills. Also, parents cannot call and ask a college anything about their student, even though they're minors, unless a student signs a FERPA. And that's a federal release so that colleges can give parents information. When I first had a child here, before I worked here, I'm like, you can take my money, but you can't talk to me about their classes? And they said, yes, but that's federal law. That's not us. So if you have a student who dual enroll, make sure they sign a FERPA. Now, even with the FERPA, those professors aren't going to be contacting you and talking to you.
Yeah.
But at least if you contact them, they're going to be allowed to talk to you if they have the time and they're able to do it. So dual enrollment is a great option, but it's not without dangers.
All right, that's awesome. That's a nice little added benefit that I actually didn't even think about on that. That it would be on your permanent record. So,
Yeah.
well, our time's running out. We will do this again because I absolutely loved what you were talking about.
Well,
Not only did you talk about Bryan College, but you gave a ton of information that homeschool parents and homeschoolers can then take wherever they go, but then also, just very valuable information. And so everybody that's watching this live or later on, the links to Bryan College is down below. Homeschool Connect Expo, the online college fair, they're all in the same grouping, so you can go back and forth to check out Pat's speaker session about getting prepared for college as well too. But when you're there on the Bryan College exhibitor page, there's videos, information about Bryan College, and then the links to go out to their website. Their website's really nice and has a ton of information on there about the college and some pictures and videos and more information. And like Pat said earlier, the tracks, which colleges used to have, but I haven't seen those lately, which is awesome that Bryan College has those, so you can kind of understand the tracks that you're going to, because that was another thing I'd never even thought about, was use the dual enrollment for things inside your track.
Right. And two more things I'd like to say very quickly. One is we dropped our tuition 40% recently. So there's only one other college in Tennessee that's less expensive than us. So when a child's pursuing engineering and nursing, that's a really good price. Yeah. And students who come to Bryan after high school and graduate with a 3.5 can then earn their master's degree with us online half price. So that's huge. Wow. It's a great opportunity, especially we have an education master's, a business master's. I'm not sure we have a lot of masters we've added. In education, if you're going to be a teacher, you're going to get a much higher paycheck if you have a master's. So a lot of opportunities for such a small school, but we'd love to have you come visit. And there's a visit link where you can sign up for a personal visit and ask for whatever you want as far as who you're going to meet with. We give a tour. It takes about an hour. You can eat in the cafeteria. You can meet with faculty. Your students can attend classes. You can meet with admissions counselor, financial aid, coaches, whatever you want to do while you're here. So lots of opportunities.
Yeah, and everybody take advantage of that and go out to the links, get more information and ask some questions. And it just shows the testament of the college that they created a position for you about homeschoolers. Because my family used to live in Orlando, and my daughter, who was our oldest, tried to go to a smaller university there in Orlando in Central Florida. Read between the lines. Anybody? And we got all the way to the very end of her registration and everything else. It was right at the end, and they kept on asking us for something that just we couldn't exist. We couldn't provide because we were homeschooled and how we did it. We had all the stuff. We had everything. And it was an impossibility. And we went up the circuits, and nobody cared. They were kind of angry at homeschoolers, I'm guessing. And people, they were really rude. And I even called, the Florida State and spoke to them how they're arguing with us that we had to have it, and had them on the line and saying this is what they're asking for. And they're like, I don't even know why.
Yeah.
And even they were trying to tell them, that it's impossible for a homeschool student to have what you're asking for. Um,
That's crazy. Well, we even have, and I can share if somebody emails me, we have an editable transcript template and an editable diploma template. None of my 9 children ever needed a diploma, but we printed one out. They have it. They did need their transcripts for
Yeah.
military, for college, for even one 30-year-old son had to have his high school transcript, which was crazy. But we do help with that. We are very homeschool friendly, and it shows.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And so for any families that might have kids, whether they're outgoing or whether they're timid and they're worried about this next step, Bryan College would be a wonderful place because they've shown, and it is a small town. Everybody, the people are friendly in that area. All my relatives are just north of there, so I know the area fairly well, and just everybody's nice, it's friendly, it's beautiful, and just the it just slipped my brain. What is Bryan College's? What's their not their tagline?
Christ above all.
Christ above all.
Christ above all. Yeah. And the heart of our faculty and staff, coaches, they're to be mentors to these kids. They're to help them succeed in life. And it's not all about scores or grades or winning. It's so much more than that. And you see that here. I mean, it's those of us who work here love it. And in fact, one thing that says a lot about the school is a huge percentage of our faculty and staff are Bryan alums. They come back or they stay. Wow. They don't even leave.
Wow. Well, Pat, I really appreciate the time. Is there anything else that we might have talked about Bryan College that I want to mention before we head out?
No, but next time let's talk more about transcripts, because that's a question I hear a lot about. So I'll be glad. And I learned a lot of information in this job I didn't even know as I homeschooled my 9. So
okay. We'll do that. I think everybody will be blessed with talking through that. So I'll send you an email. We'll get it a time figured out and get that on for the month of February. So
all right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Bryan College, go out and check them out. All the links are down below. Hey, appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good day.
All right.